Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining me. Today I am getting my winter sowing started. I'm really excited for this. I've been doing it for the last few years, and it's kind of one of those projects you can do in very late winter or before spring gets here. A little bit to get your hands in the dirt, put something outside, and it's almost one of those projects where you can set it and forget it. This is also a great project if you have kids around. This is really fun for them. I will be having my kids help me do this, or they can pick out some seeds to try as well. But with these 5 jugs, I've already placed my claim, so they will have to wait till we accumulate a couple more. So what is winter sowing? If you're not familiar with it, it is a great way to not only upcycle some of the containers that you may accumulate, but it's also a way to get seeds outside and have them get started when Mother Nature intends for them to get started. They will be placed inside of these little mini greenhouses that help protect them. It helps the soil warm up a little bit faster than our ground temperature, and is a great way to start seeds if you don't have grow lights, or if your grow lights are already filled up or the space is already claimed under your grow lights. Winter sowing allows the seeds to germinate at the time that's appropriate for them, based on when Mother Nature starts warming up in the spring. So they're going to start germinating at the right time for them, and they're also going to be hardening off. So when it is time to transplant them outside, you're going to have stronger plants going in the ground. Like anything else, there are pros and cons to winter sowing. I think the pros outweigh the cons, but that's completely up for you to decide. What I have found is that winter sowing saves me space indoors. I have limited shelf space that I can dedicate to my seed starting, and this allows me to put some of my seeds outside. Generally, you will get stronger plants from those that are winter sown because they've been out there. They're getting cooler nights, they're getting some actual sunshine, they're feeling the wind, so they're a little bit more hardy when you get to transplant them in May or June. I think they might be a little bit more hands-off than starting seeds in trays, especially during the initial few weeks or months. So once we go through our process today, I'm going to put them outside and basically forget about them for another month. As the temperatures start to warm up, then you may need to check on them once in a while to make sure that they do have enough moisture in the containers and that they're not going to get too hot. For the most part, you're not going out there and checking them every day, unless you're just curious to see if they've made any progress since yesterday. One of the other really convenient things about doing winter sowing is that I can plant 5 different types of seeds today. If I were to be planting these 5 seeds in cell trays to go under my grow lights, they might all have different timing that I should be starting them. But with the winter sowing method, the seeds are going to germinate at the appropriate time for them when the weather starts warming up and they come to the temperatures that are ideal for each of their individual seed needs. A couple of the cons: it may take some different materials than what you're normally used to with seed starting. Usually I don't have the duct tape out for my seed starting. You have to remember to save your jugs. So clearly I need to put it in my calendar in December that we need to start saving our milk jugs. I don't think it's incredibly pretty to look at a bunch of rows of milk jugs outside. However, I'm outside looking around the yard a little bit less in the winter than I would be in the summer. So I'm okay with these sitting outside for a couple months. Moving over to what do we need to winter sow? We need containers to put them in. Today I'm using old milk jugs that we have gone through. You could use water jugs, juice jugs, the takeout containers that you might get that are plastic and have kind of a dome on them. You could use cell trays that have a humidity dome on top of them. Basically what you're looking for is something that's going to let the light in, so translucent or transparent, whatever the correct word is for that. You wouldn't want to use something that's cardboard or a dark coloring. You also have to be able to put holes in it so that moisture from the sky, whether that's rain or snow, or even if you need to go out and water them with a watering can or a hose, it can get water in there, and it can also build up humidity and condensation in there. You need to put holes at the bottom of your containers for drainage. That's really important. And the other thing to consider is that you probably want them to be large enough so that you can put an adequate amount of soil in there. They will be in here for several months. The roots will be actively growing for probably 1 month or maybe 2 months. So you wouldn't want to do a very shallow tray. And then you need potting soil. I personally use regular potting soil. I feel like it is a little bit more dense than maybe the seed starting mix. It might have better water retention. I certainly have not done any scientific studies about that, but that is just how I feel that it doesn't dry out quite as fast. We're also going to need our labels. I will be using a garden marker and my little plastic labels and putting them inside the containers, and then also writing on the outside of the milk jugs what I have in there. You're gonna need something to tape your milk jugs together. I'm using duct tape. And then I have a utility knife and a scissors because we're gonna have to open these guys up. And then of course you need your seeds. When do you winter sow? Normally in my zone, I would try to get my winter sowing done in late January or February. That allows ample cold days before my last frost. And really it boils down to the individual seeds that you're gonna be planting and knowing how long or how many days do they need to be cold for them to germinate. Some need 14 days of cold stratification. Others might need 30 days or 60 days. It really depends seed by seed. One of the things that I've been working on in the last couple of years is finding the seeds that are best suited for winter sowing. The first year I was throwing warm, loving annuals out there, and that was a complete flop. What you do want to look for are plants that are okay being in the cold for an extended period of time. So this group would be your perennials, because obviously they're out there year after year going through winter, and they will do fantastic for winter sowing. Other tips are on the seed packages, it might say cold stratification needed, which means it needs a period of time where it is cold. A lot of people will put their seeds in a refrigerator for the required amount of time. This is essentially the same thing. They're sitting outside for that cold stratification period. Cold hardy annuals are another that you would be safe to try for winter sowing. They can take freezing temperatures, and really they're not going to start germinating until the temperatures, the air and soil temperatures, are what they need. So that would be another group that I would look for on the seed packet. There's quite a few different varieties that this would work well for. So for example, I mentioned perennials, and this could be your coneflowers or your daylilies. I'm going to try a butterfly flower this year, delphiniums and foxgloves. Annual flowers such as amaranth, or bells of Ireland, cosmos, and poppy. Straw flowers I had really great luck with last year. And there's a lot of vegetables that actually prefer cool temperatures too. So beets, broccoli, cabbage, kale, lettuce, spinach, spring onions. There are a ton of different types of plants that you could be starting in your winter sowing method. I would encourage you to go online and just search for what plants can I winter sow, and there will be lists and lists and lists. So I'm sure there's something that you can find that would make a great winter sowing project. So let's get into this. First, I'm going to mix up my soil. I have water, and if you've watched I put a lot of soil in here. If you watched our other videos, I had mentioned that you want your soil to be to the point where you can form it into a ball and it's not dripping, soaking wet. You can add a little bit more water to this. You're not looking for it to hold its shape. It needs to have enough water in there so that the soil is saturated, but it's okay if it's a little bit more wet for this project. So for the milk jugs or any other containers that are fairly similar to this, we do not need the cap. We actually want the rain and the snow to come in through the opening, but we don't want to cut this off because we do want it to stay protected from some of the cold. This is going to provide a little bit of insulation for the plants for the next couple months. So regardless of the container you're using, we also need to make drainage holes in the bottom. And to do this, I'm taking a utility knife and I'm just going to carefully, so as not to hurt yourself, I'm going to poke and twist about 4 holes in the bottom. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around the milk jug so that I can take the top off. One of the tips that is really handy is if you can leave a hinge on your milk jug. So I'm not going to cut below the handle here. I also would like to have about 3 inches of soil in my container. So I'm not going to make my cut down here. I'm actually going to make it right about here. And that's all there is to it. So you can see the drainage holes in the bottom. It has its hinge. And this will be the perfect little greenhouse for our plants to grow. So I'm gonna put drainage holes and cut the rest of my jugs open, and then we'll get started on filling them. While my hands are clean, I'm going to get my labels written. And again, you could just label the outside of the container if you wanted to. I usually, because we tend to get a lot of snow and rain, it'll start to fade. And usually I'm able to tell what is in them because I know what I've planted, but this is my extra insurance. So I put labels on the inside, and then I'm also going to write on the outside. The varieties that I will be starting today, I have Serendipity Allium. I'm doing 2 coneflowers, a green twister and a powwow wild berry. And then I am starting just the regular purple coneflower that I saved seeds from last year. And then I'm going to be starting a butterfly flower. Now we're going to fill them. I will be putting soil in here so that it comes to within about 1 inch of the top of the container. You want to leave a little bit of room in case the seeds you're planting in here need to be covered. And also, when you go to water your plants, that you're not going to displace your seeds because you have it filled super full. Like other things that I do, I just gently press down on the soil. I'm not compacting it very hard. I just want to make sure there aren't any huge air gaps in there. So planting the seeds is really easy. All you want to do is follow the planting directions for that seed. So one of the things that I have learned over the past few years is figuring out how many plants you would like to get out of each of these containers. The first year I did it, I overseeded each of the containers, hoping to get as many plants as I could because I didn't have grow lights or somewhere I could grow plants indoors. So this was kind of my main way of growing or starting things earlier. What I found was that sometimes it can be a little bit hard to separate each of the plants when it came time to planting them outside. If you're okay with that and you are okay taking a little bit more time and care when you separate your plants, then by all means overseed them and try and get as many plants as you can. Some people will plant like 5 seeds or hope to get 5 seeds per container, so you plant in each of the 4 corners and maybe in the middle. That might be a great technique if you have bigger plants in here or something that's going to get kind of taller or more leafy by the time you transplant them out. I think today I'm going to go somewhere in between those two. So I would like more than 5 plants but less than 30. Next step, let's close these up. I'm gonna use duct tape and just tape around where I had cut it. Do your best to line this up. This is gonna help seal in any of the extra moisture. I like to press it. It's not gonna be pretty, that's all right. And that looks great. Put your label on. One of the tips that I just remembered after I wrote it on there was some people had better luck with their label staying on when they wrote on the tape. So I might actually try that with the rest of these. There are my first 5 winter sowing jugs of the season. I will water these in, and then I'm gonna go set them outside. A couple things to keep in mind. You want to put them in a spot that's going to receive sun. It's okay if they receive a little bit of afternoon shade, that would be okay. Avoid my mistake. One of the first years I did it, I put them under the eave of my house. Don't do that because they do want snow and rain to come in through the top. As the season progresses and the temperatures start to warm up, they might start to germinate. That's when you want to start checking them a little bit more often, making sure that there's sufficient rain or snow falling in here. You may need to go out a couple times a month and spray a little bit of water in there with a hose or a watering can or a mister, or take the top off and lightly water them in. As they start to get their leaves and then their true leaves, you're gonna wanna watch your temperatures outside. So if it starts getting plenty warm during the day, I'm thinking like upper 50s or 60s, take the tape off, open them up, and they can still sit there, but you don't want them to sit outside in 60-degree temperatures in the sun with these tops on. They're gonna burn and dry out really fast. So we'll keep track of this over the next couple months, and fingers crossed, some of these will start to germinate. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for what we have coming next.